Hello, this is Whitney Will from Star Hearth Astrology, and I'm here today to talk to you about the Pisces full moon that happens on September 20th of 2021. So, I have a lifelong study of qualitative time. It's one of my favorite things to read and think about, and recently I was reading Nigel Pennick's Pagan Book of Days. And he talks about different calendar systems and the moon phases. And he had a beautiful little line where he said that the time of the full moon was a time to honor and thank helpers and guides. And I thought that that was a beautiful idea. And so I'm going to talk about that idea as it applies to this Pisces full moon, because I think that it's really rich. So often in life, we think about culminations happening at the end of things. So, right, so when we achieve our goals, that is the end. We've met our goals, we've set out, we've put our effort into, and now we have achieved something. And so our effort has culminated and the thing is done. And so we tend to think kind of in this way. But one thing that a study of the moon phases and the lunar cycle shows us is that the culmination isn't the end, it is the halfway point. So, right, a full moon is the culmination of the moon's light, it's the culmination of a lunar month, but that culmination, at the culmination, we have the pivot point and we enter the waning phase of the moon. So we have the shift from the creative, effort-filled, waxing part of the cycle into the receptive part of the cycle. We have pushed the stone all the way up the mountain, and now the inertia will pull it back down the other side. And so, right, there's a moment there where our effort has culminated, but the entire process of the thing is not over. And so there's a way in which, right, when we come to these kinds of culminations, we are releasing something. And so the way that I generally talk about full moons is the time when we kind of think about letting go. But now I think I'm guilty of this thing that I talk about a lot. And mostly I talk about it with new moons is don't bring your conscious mind into setting your intentions at the new moon. Afford yourself some darkness, some dropping into the unconscious, and don't force it to come out in language. And don't think that when you're planting seeds at the new moon, you're going to be able to understand totally what they are. Once we've got a little bit of light with the waxing crescent, or even the first quarter, that's when we can start putting conscious effort, because we're starting to see things take shape and we've had reverence for the dark and more receptive side, which is really the nature of the moon. It is receptive. So at the full moons, when I'm talking about letting things go, I think that's probably more appropriate to be talking about at the third quarter, when we're dropping back down towards the new moon. Right? I think there is a moment in the culmination of the full moon where we can acknowledge everything that it took to get us there, where we can take a deep breath and let go and surrender, right? It is the end of, we've sowed the seeds, we've tended the plants. Not everything is under our control. Part of the harvest has to do, and obviously I'm speaking metaphorically in our lives, with whether the world around us is receptive. And whether or not it's receptive, the parts of it that are receptive, we can honor. We can witness them in their contribution to our task and our journey. We are not just individual heroes pushing ourselves onto the world. The world has to receive our gifts for them to have any value. So at the full moon, we have this turning point. We have this, okay, I've done everything that I can do. and I'm either too tired, which is usually how I feel at the full moon. I feel pretty maxed out. I feel a little bit exhausted. I feel like I'm running out of steam. Because we're all the way out there, right? It's the moment of the high tide in our life. And then as the darkness comes back, as we move back into as we move through the waning phase of the moon, the tide will recede. We'll see what's left behind. We can go collect it. And these ocean metaphors are really appropriate when we're talking about the Pisces moon. The Pisces moon is deeply empathic. And what Pisces really, really excels at is understanding. There's this religious idea. I think it's Christian. Someone correct me. That there's really, when we get down to the heart of things, there's really only one flesh to wound. Anything that we inflict on others, we are inflicting on ourselves, because we're all part of a unity. And right, we hear this all the time. That's kind of a trite idea, but there are ecstatic moments when we truly feel that. And so Pisces is the potentiality for feeling that. It's the unification. And part of that is understanding that nothing really is in our possession ever, wholly, right? And so Pisces is a sign that can let things go and let people go, because there's a way in which spiritually and emotionally, it doesn't take it personally, right? It understands that everything that we have will need to be released. And so a Pisces full moon is really this turning point where we surrender. And I think it's beautiful, it's always going to happen in Virgo season, at the time of year when we're moving back towards winter and towards that darkness and towards the renewal of the year on the winter solstice or the new year or wherever you count it. But we're coming into the phase of the year that corresponds with the waning part of the lunar cycle. So we can think of, we've got the fourth quarter of the moon, where the moon really starts to release. If we put the lunar cycle onto the map of the year, that corresponds with the fall equinox, which this year happens just a couple days after this Pisces full moon. And so it's really this moment to kind of surrender to, we've done what we can do, and we don't have control over every part of the outcome. And so sometimes that can be overwhelming. And often I find that Pisces moons can open us up to more transpersonal feelings that are bigger than us. So we can pick up on collective grief, we can pick up on collective, just whatever big emotions are moving through the collective when we are in a Pisces moon. And so the full moon is kind of the pinnacle of that. Now, the Pisces moon can show up personally in your life as a kind of culmination of things that started with the Pisces new moon, which happened on March 13th of this year. So you can think back to mid-March and what was kind of happening, what might have been starting then, and kind of just check in on where it is in the journey, right? How much effort you have put into that. And right now is the time to kind of surrender, not only let it give back to you, but let it have a life of its own and find its own kind of whatever its story is supposed to be in the world. And I'm speaking in intentionally vague ways because each of us as individuals are going to have a different story for this. So, how, if we want to actively engage with this moon, can we participate with it? Well, let's go back to the idea of honoring our helpers and our guides. And it seems like it would be a beautiful ritual to write a thank you note to someone who has helped you, to someone who has helped you get this far in your life, to note appreciation for someone who inspires you. Pisces, the sign, is traditionally ruled by Jupiter, which is mentors and teachers. And so it would be really beautiful to honor our mentors and teachers on a Pisces full moon. The Pisces full moon also falls very close, as it does to the equinox, to the pagan or neo-pagan celebration of Mabon. I don't know how to pronounce the pagan festival names, but a kind of Thanksgiving, a kind of recognizing and having gratitude for the harvest, for the abundance that has come to us in this harvest season. And so understanding, right, that some of what comes to us we create for ourselves, and some of it is purely the generosity of the forces in the world. And that regardless of where it comes from, we can be grateful for how we can find belonging in the collective, for the places that are offered to us, right? One of our favorite Virgos, Mary Oliver. Those wild geese, I'm watching them fly home again, over and over, announcing my place in the family of things. Virgo is going to want to know its place in the family of things. Pisces has faith. Pisces knows in a deeper way than any intellectual understanding of Virgo that we are all part of the whole. Now, this particular full moon, when we look at the chart, there's a few things that stand out. It happens at the very end. So we've got the sun at 28 degrees of Virgo and then 180 degrees away, culminating in her full moon is the moon at 28 degrees of Pisces. The moon is kind of close to Neptune, but not close enough that I would confidently say this is a full moon conjunct Neptune. It's kind of a full moon near to Neptune. So I don't think it's overly Neptunian, but that new moon on March 13th was conjunct Neptune. So there's a dreamy quality, right? We're seeing how the dreams of March have culminated 6 months later. Now we have the rulers of the luminaries, right? Mercury, which rules Virgo, is ruling the sun in this lunation, and Jupiter, the ruler of Pisces, rules the moon. Those two planets are in a very exact trine to the arc minute. So Mercury is getting ready to station retrograde at the end of Libra, and Jupiter is getting ready to station direct at the end of Aquarius, and they are in this very tight trine. So there is lots of there is mental clarity and support around this because they're both in air signs. So what I think, right, that adds to this idea, right? We've got Mercury, the student, in a perfect trine with Jupiter, the teacher, and they're talking, they're sharing ideas. So I think to honor this moon, understand that not everything is in your power. The Pisces faith that you are part of a great story that you do not know now. Let yourself rest in that. If this full moon, the emotional peak of the month, feels overwhelming, and to move some energy, write some thank you notes. Okay, that's what I have for you. Let me know how this moon cycle goes for you. Wishing you all the best. I have a few classes that are starting in the next couple weeks. I have my Practice Astrology Together, which is a bi-weekly discussion group where we integrate the current astrology into our natal charts. It's a great way if you have some astrology language and want to practice it and connect with other astrologers to participate. You can find the information for that on my website, which is linked in the show notes. That starts on October 4th. And then I also have my Saturn, my 3-part Saturn return class starting on October 9th. I shifted the dates around. So if you're confused, that's why. It starts on Saturday, October 9th. It's every other week. And then where we learn about the 3 main transits that bring us into the Saturn return cycle. Whether you are in the middle of these transits between the ages of, say, 26 to 30, or you're a practitioner that wants to know about these to help your clients, this class is filled with kind of juicy, developmental life stuff to help you kind of develop a game plan and understand what's coming down the line for these years when we cross from youth into adulthood. Again, you can find details for that on my website. Let me know if you have any questions. I wish you a holy Pisces new moon, full moon. Whew. And Mercury is about to go retrograde, so dot those I's, cross those T's.